The film to be discussed is Let the Right One In. My extract begins at 1 hour and 5 minutes and runs for 1 hour and 10 minutes. In the opening shot, we see Ellie watch Oscar swim, then she follows him into a dark room. The film is directed by Thomas Alfredson, produced by Carl Molander and John Nordring, released on January 2008 in Sweden. The film is based on the novel written by John Alvide Lindqvist with the same title as the film. The film is considered to be a horror and romance film. The main characters are Ellie and Oscar. Oscar is a lonely and bullied 12-year-old, and Ellie, who is a mysterious girl who is a vampire stuck at the age of 12. The scene begins with Ellie watching Oscar swim in the pool. We see Ellie behind a window, watching Oscar. We are able to see this as someone being isolated from society. While everyone else in the pool socializing, Ellie is isolated. Oscar then takes Ellie into a dark room, and in the room they spend time together. Oscar truly likes Ellie because she is his only friend, someone who he trusts and enjoys spending time with. When Ellie feels alone, they create a character in their imagination. Maybe Ellie is a person that exists only in the head of Oscar because he feels lonely and his parents do not care much about Oscar. The extract portrays the theme of isolation and not being able to be accepted by society. This extract is interesting because it exposes the theme of isolation. Oscar does not get along with others at school, and his parents are divorced. Ellie is also a weird human being because she is a vampire, therefore isolating herself from society. The scene advances the plot because he begins to have confidence when being around Ellie. Ellie has not completely mentioned to Oscar what she is at this point, but she observes that he has a lot of trust in her and enjoys spending a lot of time with Ellie. The more they spend time together, the more Ellie is able to trust Oscar. Oscar tells Ellie everything. When he begins to speak to Ellie, his tone of voice changes. He is happier and feels a lot more confident with her. His voice also gets louder, and the way he looks at her with joy in the eyes. The scene opens up with a shot of Ellie. We are viewed to her as a high angle. This angle tells us that Ellie is vulnerable. As she sees through the window, we see that she is separated from society. She is not able to go in the pool because she is not like everyone else. Next, we see a back shot of Ellie. Her hands are on the window, maybe envying how much she wishes she could fit into society with the other kids. When Ellie and Oscar are together in the dark room, the cinematographer is using medium shots. These types of shots capture the characters' movements as well as their facial expressions. We also see that the movie uses close-up shots to portray the intimacy that both Ellie and Oscar have between one another during their conversations. Ellie and Oscar are almost always seen in the same frame. As Oscar leads Ellie into a dark room, the audience is aware that they are in a room together. The spacing between the characters tells a lot more about their characters. As Oscar cuts his hand in order to make pact with Ellie, we see Ellie stepping away from the frame that Oscar's in, having a lot of space between Oscar and herself. This tells us that she does not want to attack Oscar because of the blood that is dripping from the open wound from his hand. She then completely leaves the frame, leaving Oscar alone because she knows she's not safe for her to be there with Oscar because of what may happen to Oscar. Most of the time throughout the film, we see that Ellie and Oscar are in the same frame because they are trying to get close. Oscar's trying to get closer to Ellie as a friend. The lighting in the film is very dim or dark. The lighting sets scene for the film. The lighting is always very dark around Ellie, not only because she's not able to be around the sun, but because she is a vampire, and this tells us that she is completely isolated from society because she is not human and does not fit with the social norm. She isolates herself in the darkness. The dim lights also set the sorrow feeling that Oscar feels. He is getting bullied by other kids, and no adult seems to be into consideration his depressing and violent actions towards others. The color scheme used in the film are the dark colors to represent the depressing moods of both Ellie and Oscar, and how Ellie is only seen in darkness. Overall, the film portrays a very dark and depressing mood. The costuming of Ellie tells us Ellie's gender, female with the color of pink that she wears in the shot. The heavy clothing of the characters also tells us that it is very cold outside. It also tells us the financial states of the character as we see that Oscars wears nice clothing that are in good condition, while Ellie wears clothing that is somewhat old and not new at all. Ellie truly feels comfortable with Oscar. But when we see that Oscar cuts his hands to make a blood pact with Ellie, Ellie's facial expression tells us that what Oscar did was a very dangerous thing to do. We also notice that she is happy and tells Oscar well done when he tells her about how he had hit Connie with a stick in the air. She is proud of him, while Oscar is very happy that she had stood up for himself. The acting in the scene that I picked, their facial expressions really tell about how they feel one another with the smiles and the facial expressions help the characters truly express how they feel about one another. Ellie, when it comes to Oscar, she feels very confident around him. They keep a lot of eye contact, as well as Oscar. He is able to look up to her and really truly tell her how he feels about his day and what's going on in his life, and he's not able to do this with a lot of people. Throughout the scene, we hear the growling of. We don't not throughout the scene, but at the end when Oscar cuts his hand, we hear the growl of Ellie's stomach. The music is cut off. The non-diegetic music is then begins to play. The non-diegetic music sounds very horrifying. When she starts feeding on Oscar's blood, is when we assume that she will then attack Oscar and kill him. Hence the horrifying music in the background. The growl in her stomach, the hunger that Ellie has, makes us assume that she will feed on Oscar, but instead she doesn't. In a way, this tells us that she would like to start a friendship with Oscar. During this time spent in the room, Ellie plays a cassette on the cassette player. The song sounds very romantic and joyful, representing the time of intimacy between the two. The editing throughout the extract uses a lot of cutaways and cross-cutting are used throughout the scene to indicate the reaction of the characters and the different shots being used. Overall, this film, it relates to the Swedish cinematic tradition of both isolation and classic vampire movies. Though the film Let the Right One In was not very in-depth about the vampire, with Ellie, it had a mixture of both isolation and vampires. In other classical Swedish films such as Frostbite or Not Like the Others, does not use much isolation dramatic acting, but instead focuses more on the vampires within the film and the killings. But it does also express isolation from society and not being able to fit in the social norm, and the setting that Sweden offers to do so, using the cold, icy nights that Sweden has to offer. The targeted audience are teens. I feel like the generic expectations about this film was being able to truly learn more about vampires, but that wasn't the case. The theme of the film is not being able to fit in the social norm. The isolation and the meaning of being able to have someone with you, and the friendship that Oscar wants to have with Ellie. Film criticism made were by Manola Dargis. States of films cool is largely expressed in visual terms in the enveloping snow, the wintry light, and the cinematography used, published on October 2008 by the New York Times, and Kim Newman. At once a devastating, curiously uplifting and human drama in a superbly crafted genre exercise, Let the Right One In, can stand toe-to-toe with Spirit of the Beehive, Pan's Labyrinth, or Orphe, published in October 2008 by The Empire.